Have you ever felt stuck in the middle of life's storms, wondering if healing is even possible? Whether it's physical pain, emotional turmoil, or a deep spiritual disconnect, the weight of suffering can feel unbearable. But what if I told you there's a secret to transforming your pain into peace, your sorrow into joy? Psalm 30 holds the key to healing and restoration that you might have overlooked. It's not just a collection of ancient verses. It's a powerful, divine blueprint for transforming your heart and life. You might be surprised at how simple yet profound this psalm is, offering a direct pathway to God's mercy, healing, and the transformation you've been waiting for. Ready to unlock it? Let's dive in. Psalm 30 isn't just another ancient prayer. It's a deeply transformative expression of hope, especially in moments of personal struggle. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by life's trials? When suffering clouds your days, this psalm can be the lifeline you need. The words within it resonate with the truth that even in our darkest hours, there's a pathway to healing and liberation. The message is clear. No matter how painful your current situation, the act of praying can draw you closer to divine help, offering comfort and peace that surpasses understanding. When you embrace its message, you invite change into your life. This psalm, written by King David, speaks directly to the soul. As you read it, you begin to realize that you're not alone in your battles. King David knew exactly what it meant to face life's worst storms. His testimony is living proof that prayer, coupled with faith, can heal you. It's like reaching out to an invisible friend who's been waiting for you to call. Through Psalm 30, you get to see how prayer isn't just a ritual, but a personal connection to God, which offers real healing, emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. When you open your Bible to Psalm 30, you're not merely reading words. You're engaging with a promise of renewal. In times of distress, whether it's illness, grief, or even personal failures, this prayer becomes a guide. It reminds you that the road to liberation begins with recognizing that God's grace is always available. Picture this. Every tear, every heartbreak you've endured can be transformed into joy. And it's not a passive transformation. It's an active one. By praying with faith, you actively invite God's power into your life, bringing about healing that you might not even expect. The power of Psalm 30 lies in its ability to take you on a journey from despair to hope. Think about the time when you felt hopeless, perhaps during a sickness or loss. Now imagine reciting Psalm 30, allowing its words to settle into your spirit. As you pray, there's an inner shift. The weight of your struggles may not disappear instantly, but with each word, you begin to sense peace and strength returning. It's a gradual process, but one that's as real as the angel's presence surrounding you. The Bible teaches us that God's healing isn't a one-time event, it's a continuous flow, brought about through sincere prayer. Many people mistakenly think healing only refers to physical recovery. Yet Psalm 30 shows that healing is much broader. It touches the heart, mind, and soul. For example, a person might be struggling with anxiety, and reading Psalm 30 can bring a sense of calm they never expected. The act of prayer, combined with the spiritual balm of this psalm, helps to restore balance and harmony within, offering healing for the emotions as well as the body. This isn't just about seeking God's help for physical illness, but also about finding emotional restoration in a world full of challenges. Psalm 30 is a reminder that you have the power to reach out for help, to pray for divine intervention, and trust that God will answer. You can picture David, a man who once faced the unimaginable, now speaking to you through these verses. In his healing, he finds gratitude. And when you pray this psalm, you tap into that same gratitude. You acknowledge that God's mercy is greater than any trial. Even when you're hurting, there's a quiet assurance that healing is on the way. And this healing isn't just a momentary relief, it's an invitation to transformation. There's something deeply moving about the fact that Psalm 30 doesn't just speak of healing, but also liberation. It's one thing to recover from illness, but it's another to be freed from the emotional chains that bind us. Whether it's past hurts, fear, or doubt, this psalm shows that through prayer, you can break free from these chains. The angels, as messengers of divine peace, are there to guide you along this transformative path. Each time you pray with sincerity, you take another step toward freedom, not just from physical ailments, but from the burdens that weigh on your soul. Life isn't always smooth sailing, and we all face challenges that seem insurmountable at times. Yet even in the most trying of circumstances, faith and prayer can be the anchor that holds us steady. When the storms of life rage, these two pillars, faith and prayer, become your lifeline. Psalm 30 teaches that no matter how great the tribulations, God's comfort is just a prayer away. It's like having a bridge to cross the roughest waters. When you pray with faith, you tap into an unshakable source of peace that not only comforts, but renews you, restoring your strength and hope. Prayer connects you directly with God, creating a sacred space where His presence can touch your life in profound ways. Just like a phone call to a close friend when you need advice or support, prayer is your direct line to God. It's a reminder that you don't have to bear your burdens alone. Every time you lift your voice in prayer, whether in times of happiness or despair, you invite God's presence into your life. This connection nurtures your spirit, renews your mind, and heals your heart. As you pray, faith intertwines with hope, creating a powerful force that guides you through even the darkest valleys. Think about it. When you feel overwhelmed, it's easy to fall into a mindset of helplessness. But that's when prayer is most powerful. By praying, you acknowledge that God's strength is greater than anything you're facing. Psalm 30 reinforces this truth by showing that even King David, a man who faced great trials, understood the value of seeking God's help through prayer. He knew that God's comfort and renewal came when he had the courage to pray, even when he couldn't see the end of his suffering. In your life too, this act of faith is transformative. Prayer shifts your perspective and aligns your heart with divine peace. In moments of tribulation, you might feel like there's no way out. But when you pray, you invite God's mercy into your situation. Psalm 30 doesn't just offer words of comfort, it offers action. It's a call to speak to God directly, to trust in His power to transform your circumstances. Whether you're facing illness, loss, or personal struggles, prayer acts as a spiritual medicine that renews your soul. The more you pray with sincerity, the more you experience God's comfort and healing power. It's not a magical fix, but a gradual renewal that comes through consistent, heartfelt communication with the Creator. Real-life examples are often the most relatable. Picture someone who is grieving the loss of a loved one. In the days of sorrow, it's easy to feel that life will never be the same. But when this person prays, even through tears, they connect with the healing power of God. Prayer doesn't eliminate the pain overnight, but it begins to replace despair with a quiet sense of peace. Over time, this individual may find that they have the strength to face another day, and slowly the darkness begins to lift. It's a gentle, divine healing that happens in the quiet moments of prayer, where faith meets God's grace. What Psalm 30 teaches us is that prayer isn't just a tool for asking for help. It's a means of connecting with God's love and mercy. Through prayer, God renews not just our physical health, but our emotional and spiritual well-being. And when faith is intertwined with prayer, a powerful transformation occurs. When life gets difficult, don't just wait for things to get better on their own. Take action by praying. Allow your faith to connect you with God's infinite mercy, and you'll find comfort and renewal even in the midst of your tribulations. Prayer brings hope, and hope leads to healing. It's this cycle of faith and prayer that forms the foundation of Psalm 30. Every time you pray, you're actively choosing to believe that healing is possible, even in the most hopeless situations. You're stepping into the unknown with the assurance that God walks with you. This is how tribulations, no matter how severe, become opportunities for growth, transformation, and deeper connection with God. And that's the beauty of Psalm 30. It teaches you how to walk through life's challenges with faith, prayer, and trust in God's healing power. King David's life wasn't short of challenges. From fierce battles to personal tribulations, he experienced it all. One of the most poignant moments in his life was when he fell severely ill, a time that could have been his undoing. But this experience didn't break him, it transformed him. After being healed by God's mercy, David penned Psalm 30 as a public testimony of God's healing power. It wasn't just a personal moment of gratitude. It was his way of declaring to the world that God is always faithful, even when the situation seems hopeless. His illness became the backdrop, for a powerful declaration of divine mercy. David's illness was not only physical, but likely emotional and spiritual as well. His reign as king had placed him under immense pressure, and the toll was evident. Yet, when David turned to prayer and placed his faith in God, his healing began. This psalm became his way of publicly declaring that healing was possible through God's grace. In the same way, our own struggles, whether illness, financial hardship, or personal loss, can be the fertile ground for powerful testimonies. Psalm 30 teaches that God's mercy isn't just for the past, it's for today. Your healing, your restoration, can be a testimony that impacts others. What's striking about this psalm is that it doesn't just talk about David's healing, it praises God for it. It's a song of thanksgiving, a celebration of the divine mercy that turned David's mourning into dancing. He didn't keep his healing to himself. He wanted everyone to know that God had heard his prayers and had responded with mercy. This is something we can all learn from. No matter how small or large the victory, sharing it with others can serve as a powerful testimony to the world. When you receive healing, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, it's an opportunity to lift your voice in gratitude, just like David did. In real life, we often see this kind of testimony in action. Think of someone who has gone through a severe illness and after being healed, speaks to others about their journey. Their story can inspire hope in someone who feels like they're facing an insurmountable challenge. It's not about glorifying the struggle, but about showing that healing is real and accessible through faith and prayer. David's experience is a blueprint for all of us. Just as he used his healing as a public testimony of God's mercy, we too can share our own stories of divine intervention to inspire others to pray and seek healing. David's psalm also highlights something powerful. God's mercy is not just a concept, it's a living, breathing reality. After his healing, David didn't merely say, "I'm thankful." He proclaimed, "You turned my mourning into dancing." It's a vivid image of the transformation that God's mercy brings. The same transformation is available to anyone who prays with faith, trusting that God can take what seems hopeless and turn it into a testimony of victory. When we face our own trials, Psalm 30 becomes a reminder that God's mercy is never out of reach. The act of publicly sharing the goodness of God is not just for David, it's for all of us. The more we open our mouths in gratitude, the more we invite others to witness the power of God's mercy. It's like sending out an invitation to the world to see what God can do. And when others hear our testimonies, it can inspire them to pray with the same faith and trust. The message of Psalm 30 spreads beyond just words. It becomes a catalyst for others to seek divine mercy in their own lives. When David wrote this psalm, it was an act of public praise. He used his healing to point people toward the source of his recovery, God. And that's the power of testimony. Psalm 30 teaches us that we should not keep our victories, big or small, hidden. Instead, share them with others. By doing so, we not only honor God, but we also create a ripple effect that encourages others to pray, to trust, and to seek their own healing. David's testimony continues to resonate today, reminding us that God is always ready to heal, renew, and restore. Psalm 30 is more than just words. It's a guide to strengthening your faith and deepening your trust in God. When you take time to reflect on this powerful psalm, you're not just memorizing verses, you're allowing its truth to resonate within your heart. It's a spiritual exercise that leads to growth. You begin to see that through prayer, you not only invite healing into your life, but also a transformation of the soul. The psalm acts as a mirror, reflecting back to you the immense power of God's faithfulness, which invites you to surrender more fully to His will. Faith isn't always something that comes easily. In life, we often face situations that challenge our ability to believe that things will get better. Yet, Psalm 30 teaches that reflection on God's past faithfulness strengthens our ability to trust Him in the present. Think about it. When you look back on the moments when you thought there was no way forward, yet somehow you made it through, those are the moments that build your faith. Reflecting on these times, paired with the words of this psalm, allows you to see the pattern of God's unchanging faithfulness. When you realize how He has carried you through before, it becomes easier to trust Him now. Surrendering to God can be a difficult concept to grasp. It's not about giving up, but about giving in to God's will, His timing, and His plan for your life. Reflecting on Psalm 30 encourages this surrender. David didn't hold back his praise. He freely acknowledged that his healing came through God's mercy. When you surrender, you trust that God's ways are higher than your own, and this trust opens the door for divine healing. It's not always easy, but prayer combined with surrender creates space for transformation. It's an act of releasing control and saying, "I trust you." One of the most beautiful aspects of Psalm 30 is how it invites you to seek God's healing and transformation. Through reflection, you recognize that God isn't just concerned with physical healing. He desires to restore every part of you, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Prayer is the key that unlocks this divine transformation. Imagine how different your life could be if you surrendered every part of it to God's care. Reflecting on Psalm 30 allows you to see that this transformation is not only possible, but it's also part of God's loving plan for you. Transformation through prayer isn't about an immediate fix. Instead, it's a gradual process of allowing God's peace to fill every empty space in your heart. The act of reflecting on Psalm 30 is like planting seeds of trust and faith that slowly grow over time. When you meditate on its words, you're planting those seeds deep within your soul. With each prayer, you water those seeds, and over time, they produce a harvest of healing, peace, and spiritual growth. This process of transformation is one that you participate in actively, but it is also one that God orchestrates. The key takeaway from Psalm 30 is that healing and transformation come when you fully surrender to God's will. It's a process, and sometimes it's a difficult one. But as you pray, as you trust, and as you surrender, you begin to experience the divine healing that the psalm promises. Reflecting on these verses strengthens your faith and opens your heart to the work that God is doing in your life. It's a powerful reminder that no matter the trial or the struggle, God is always faithful, and He is always working for your good. Psalm 30 invites you into a life of continual surrender and transformation. Through prayer, faith, and trust, you begin to align yourself with God's divine will. When you surrender to Him, you're not giving up. You're embracing the opportunity for healing and transformation that only God can provide. It's through this process that you'll find the comfort and renewal that your heart has longed for, and it all begins with a simple, yet powerful act of prayer. When you read the words of Psalm 30, it's easy to get caught up in their poetic beauty. But these words are more than just verses. They are a healing balm for the soul. They carry a power that transcends the written page and can bring deep emotional and spiritual healing. In times of distress, these words have the ability to soothe your heart, providing comfort and strength. Think of them like a gentle hand on your shoulder, reminding you that you are not alone. The healing power of Psalm 30 is in its simplicity and truth. Offering more than just solace, it offers true restoration. There's something deeply transformative about the way the psalm speaks to the heart. It acknowledges pain and suffering, yet it does so with the certainty that healing is within reach. When you reflect on David's words, you realize that the psalm doesn't shy away from the realities of life's hardships. Instead, it addresses them head-on, while pointing toward the hope of healing. The emotional balm of these verses is found in the assurance that God's mercy is always available. When you pray these words, they become a channel for God's healing power to flow into your life. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, unsure of where to turn? Psalm 30 offers a simple yet profound solution. Turn to God in prayer. The psalm itself becomes a tool for emotional healing. By speaking its words aloud or meditating on them in your heart, you invite God's presence into your emotional wounds. It's not about fixing everything all at once, but about allowing God's mercy to begin the healing process. Just like a doctor prescribes medicine to cure physical ailments, Psalm 30 serves as a spiritual prescription to help heal the heart and mind. This spiritual balm extends beyond emotions. Psalm 30 speaks to the soul, offering peace that surpasses understanding. It reminds you that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken on the surface. It's about a deeper transformation, When you feel distant from God or overwhelmed by life's burdens, these verses remind you that God's mercy has the power to restore you body and soul. Psalm 30 invites you to surrender your hurts and fears to God, allowing His healing touch to restore you. It's an invitation to let go and experience the renewal that only God can provide. Real-life examples illustrate this beautifully. Think of someone who has been through a painful divorce or loss. In those dark times, words can feel hollow and comfort may seem distant. Yet when this person turns to Psalm 30 in prayer, they may find a new sense of peace. The words of the psalm speak directly to their sorrow, offering them comfort and reminding them that God's mercy is always there, even in the darkest moments. These words become a lifeline, lifting them out of despair and guiding them toward healing and wholeness. The emotional and spiritual healing that Psalm 30 brings is not a quick fix, but a gradual process. It's about creating space for God's mercy to seep into your life, bit by bit, until it permeates every area of your being. Each time you reflect on its verses, you are inviting healing into your heart, your mind, and your spirit. Just like a balm applied to a wound, Psalm 30 begins to soothe and restore, little by little, until the wound is healed completely. Through prayer and faith, the words of this psalm become the remedy for your soul's deepest hurts. Psalm 30 is a reminder that healing is an ongoing process, and the words of this psalm are there to guide you through it. They act as a spiritual balm that gently heals, soothes, and restores, both emotionally and spiritually. As you meditate on the psalm, remember that its healing power is always available to you. With each prayer, you draw closer to the healing and peace that God desires for you. Through these words, God's mercy is revealed, bringing comfort and restoration where it's needed most. Psalm 30 offers a profound reminder of the infinite mercy of God. It's easy to feel as though there's a limit to how much God can forgive or heal. But this psalm boldly declares that God's mercy has no boundaries. When you're in the depths of despair, overwhelmed by grief or pain, it might feel as though the sorrow will never end. Yet, Psalm 30 assures you that God's mercy is always present, even in the darkest of nights. When you feel like you've reached the end of your strength, that's when His mercy is most powerfully at work. It's in those moments that He turns your tears into joy. The imagery of turning mourning into dancing is one of the most beautiful and comforting aspects of Psalm 30. It speaks of a transformation that only God can bring about. When you're struggling, it can seem impossible to imagine joy in the midst of your tears. But the psalm paints a picture of hope. God's mercy is so abundant that He is capable of turning even your darkest moments into a testimony of joy. What a powerful message. It's a reminder that no matter how deep the sorrow, God is ready to replace it with peace, happiness, and celebration. Think about the times when you've experienced profound sorrow. It may have been a personal loss, a failure, or a difficult season in life. At the time, it probably seemed like the sadness would never end. But as you look back, you might notice how God's mercy has worked in your life. He took those tears, that sorrow, and used it to bring you closer to Him, to deepen your faith, and to fill you with joy in ways you hadn't imagined possible. Reflecting on Psalm 30 can help you recognize that even in your darkest moments, God's mercy is transforming your sorrow into something beautiful. Sometimes, when we're in the middle of hardship, it's difficult to see beyond the present pain. We may ask, how could anything good come from this? But Psalm 30 teaches us that God specializes in turning the impossible into the miraculous. His mercy doesn't just relieve suffering, it transforms it. Your tears are not in vain. God can and will turn them into joy when you trust in His infinite mercy. In the darkest of nights, when it feels like there is no way out, He is at work, preparing you for a brighter tomorrow. This is where faith comes in. It's believing that God's mercy will bring you through. Real-life examples abound of people who have gone through the deepest of struggles, only to emerge with a renewed sense of joy and peace. Think of someone who has suffered the loss of a loved one, and years later is able to speak of that experience with a sense of peace and gratitude. It's not that the pain didn't exist, it's that God's mercy worked in their life to turn that mourning into dancing. They may have prayed through the pain, holding on to the hope that God would bring them joy again. And in His timing, He did. That's the power of God's mercy. It takes our deepest pain and transforms it into something beautiful. As you reflect on Psalm 30, take comfort in the fact that God's mercy is infinite. No matter how many tears you shed, they are never wasted. Each tear is a seed that, when watered by prayer and faith, will grow into a harvest of joy. God doesn't leave you to suffer in isolation. He is always with you, turning your mourning into dancing. It may not happen overnight, but with each prayer and with each moment of trust, you're one step closer to experiencing the joy that God has promised. The psalm is a reminder that no night is too dark for God's light to shine through. Psalm 30 encourages you to trust that God's mercy is limitless and that He will always be there to turn your sorrow into joy. No matter how long the night, joy comes in the morning. His mercy will never fail you. The more you reflect on this truth, the more you'll begin to see His hand at work in your life, even in the moments when it feels like all hope is lost. With prayer and trust, you can rest in the certainty that God will turn your tears into joy. When we talk about healing, it's easy to focus solely on the physical. We think of healing as the relief of physical pain, the restoration of health. But Psalm 30 teaches us that God's healing goes much deeper. It encompasses not only the body, but also the emotional and spiritual aspects of our being. Physical healing is a beautiful gift, but emotional and spiritual healing are just as vital. God's mercy doesn't just restore the body, it heals the heart, mind, and soul. This kind of healing is comprehensive and life-changing, bringing peace to places we didn't even realize were broken. Take a moment to think about emotional pain. Have you ever experienced a wound that wasn't visible to others, but it weighed heavily on your heart? Whether it's grief, anxiety, depression, or any other form of emotional turmoil, these struggles can often feel like they'll never end. Psalm 30 assures you that God's healing extends to the very depths of your emotions. As you pray and reflect on these words, you open yourself to God's healing touch, which brings comfort and peace. His mercy is not limited to physical ailments. It is boundless and reaches every part of you that needs restoration. Spiritual healing is equally important. Sometimes the greatest wounds aren't the ones we can see, but those that affect our relationship with God. When you felt distant or disconnected, it can be hard to find the strength to pray or seek healing. But Psalm 30 reminds us that God's mercy is always present to restore us, no matter how far we may have drifted. This spiritual healing is about realigning ourselves with God's will, trusting that His mercy will restore us to the place where we can experience His peace and love once again. When you experience emotional or spiritual pain, it's tempting to think that healing will come from external sources, relationships, achievements, or material things. While these can bring temporary relief, they are never a substitute for the healing that comes from God. Psalm 30 reminds us that true healing is a gift that comes from God alone. It's in His presence, through prayer and surrender, that we find the strength and peace we need. This healing goes beyond surface-level comfort and touches the deepest parts of our hearts, bringing a sense of completeness that nothing else can. Real-life examples show us how God's healing works in profound ways. For someone struggling with anxiety or fear, prayer and reflection on Psalm 30 can become a tool for peace. As they speak the words aloud, they begin to experience a shift within themselves. They might feel less burdened, less afraid, and more trusting in God's ability to bring peace. Over time, the emotional heaviness lifts, replaced by a newfound sense of calm and confidence in God's presence. This transformation isn't about instant fixes. It's about the steady, ongoing work of God's healing power. The beauty of God's healing is that it brings strength. It's not about becoming weak in the face of our struggles, but about drawing strength from God's mercy. As you reflect on Psalm 30, you'll find that its words give you the courage to face life's challenges with confidence, knowing that God is always there to heal, restore, and empower you. With each prayer, you become stronger, emotionally and spiritually, because you are leaning into God's grace. The healing that God offers doesn't just restore, it empowers, bringing a sense of peace and strength that sustains you through life's most difficult moments. Psalm 30 shows us that healing is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing journey that involves all aspects of our being. God offers healing that is both physical and spiritual, emotional and mental. As you continue to pray and reflect on this psalm, you'll discover that his healing power touches every part of you, bringing peace and strength to your heart, mind, and soul. This is the kind of healing that only God can provide, a healing that restores and empowers, leading you to a place of peace that surpasses understanding. Reflecting on Psalm 30 is not just about reading words, it's about engaging with them on a deeper level, allowing them to stir something within your soul. As you meditate on this psalm, you strengthen your faith in God's ability to heal, restore, and transform. It's easy to lose sight of God's mercy in the midst of life's struggles, but Psalm 30 invites you to remember that his faithfulness is unshakable. The more you reflect on these words, the more you deepen your trust in God's promise to never leave you. This process of reflection isn't passive, it's an active engagement with God's truth that brings transformation. Faith is built through reflection and prayer, and Psalm 30 is a powerful tool for strengthening that faith. When you take the time to truly immerse yourself in the Psalm's message, you're not just reading words on a page, you're opening your heart to God's presence. The Psalm teaches us that no matter the trial, God's faithfulness remains constant. By meditating on these verses, you're reminded that, through prayer, God will heal, restore, and transform your life. Reflection on Psalm 30 helps you connect with that divine promise and allows you to surrender to his will with a heart full of trust. Surrendering to God's will is often the hardest part of the healing process. We tend to want control, to fix things on our own terms. But Psalm 30 teaches us that true healing and transformation come when we surrender our will to God's. This surrender isn't about giving up hope. It's about trusting that God's plan is greater than our own. As you reflect on this psalm, you'll begin to see that healing and restoration come not through striving, but through surrendering to God's perfect timing. It's a release of control that invites divine healing to flow freely into your life. In practice, surrendering to God through prayer might look like simply offering up your fears, pain, and uncertainties. When you pray through Psalm 30, it's an act of surrender, a way of saying, God, I trust you to heal me. I trust that your mercy will bring transformation. This act of trust is not passive. It's a declaration of faith. With each prayer, you're inviting God's presence into your life, acknowledging that his power to heal and transform is far greater than anything you could accomplish on your own. Think about a time when you've been through a challenge that felt impossible. In the midst of that, did you ever experience a moment where you simply gave it all to God? Perhaps you surrendered your worries, your pain, and your doubt, and in that moment, you experienced peace and clarity. Psalm 30 is an invitation to enter that place of surrender, where God's healing power works not just to fix the external circumstances, but to renew and restore your heart, mind, and spirit. It's in that place of trust that true healing begins. Trusting in God's faithfulness doesn't mean that life will be free of challenges, but it does mean that you'll never face those challenges alone. Reflection on Psalm 30 strengthens your faith in God's unwavering support. It reminds you that, no matter how dark the night, his light will shine through. Through prayer and trust in his faithfulness, you open yourself up to the transformation that only God can bring. It's this deep, abiding trust that allows you to experience the fullness of his healing and restoration in your life. The act of reflecting on Psalm 30 is more than just a spiritual exercise. It's a way of deepening your relationship with God. It strengthens your faith, invites surrender, and allows you to experience the healing and transformation that only he can provide. When you pray with this psalm, you are not only seeking healing, but also stepping into a place of trust, knowing that God's faithfulness will guide you through whatever comes your way. Now that you've discovered the transformative power of Psalm 30, what's holding you back from experiencing healing in your own life? Reflect on its words, surrender your worries to God, and let his mercy restore you, body, mind, and spirit. Imagine how your life could change if you truly embraced this psalm and trusted in God's faithful healing power. How much lighter would your heart feel? How much peace could you find in the midst of challenges? Don't let these insights slip away. Take action today. Pray through Psalm 30 and feel the healing begin. Remember, the process is gradual, but with each prayer and each moment of trust, you're moving closer to God's perfect peace. Are you ready to invite transformation into your life? If you found this powerful truth helpful, subscribe to our channel and activate notifications to keep learning how you can use God's Word to heal, grow, and transform. Together, let's unlock the full power of Psalm 30 and see the transformation happen in your life.